my screen now that we've done our fun poll and now that we're recording. But hi, I'm Holly DeArmond. I am the Executive Director of the GCEC. Welcome to our June virtual connection. And before we get started, I just have a few updates and promos from GCEC headquarters. We did announce earlier in the week that we've extended our awards deadline. The original deadline was last Monday, but we gave everyone one more week. So you now have until end of day 11:59 Pacific time on June 29th, which is Monday, to submit a nomination in our awards. And so I hope you'll take the time to read through those. We have 10 categories. Two of them are for individuals. The rest are for centers and programs and institutes. So I encourage you to check out our website. You can scan that QR code for more information, see where your center might fit, and work on a nomination for that. It's a great way to raise awareness for your program, for your team, for your school. So again, that deadline is Monday, and I know many of you have already started your applications. And then next up is registration is open for our 2026 GCEC conference. We'll be at Florida State University in Tallahassee from October 15th to 17th. That early bird registration fee, to get the best price ends on August 3rd. So you can start registering at any time. We have that QR code that will take you exactly there, but of course our website has all of the information. It's going to be a great 3 days in Tallahassee. The team there is excellent. We've got over 200 breakout session proposals we're reviewing, so the content will be very good. The networking will be incredible. So hopefully you can join us. There's still time. I know it's probably late in the game, but we're still taking registrations for our GCEC Global Summit in Brazil. I know some of you I see on the call today are joining us in Brazil. This is our summit series. It's always in sort of an international emerging market. We're going to be in Sao Paulo this year, July 23 through 25. Again, all of the information's on our website, or you can always reach out to me, Holly DeArmond, and I can give you some more information. But let's get started because this was a very popular topic. Like Elaine Chen said in Calgary at our conference, we've done several AI webinars, but Elaine's talk in Calgary was very well received. And so we invited her today to come and speak about entrepreneurship at work speed, which is, I think, how a lot of us feel. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Elaine Chen. She's the Cummings Family Professor of Practice and Director of the Derby Center for Entrepreneurship at Tufts University. So Elaine, thank you for being here. I think I've stopped sharing and I'm going to turn this session over to you. But as we always do with these, keep the chat active. If you need anything, you have questions, and Katie and I will help manage that. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Elaine.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Holly. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming in on a Friday morning. And we were actually wondering who's going to work. So we're so happy that you have joined us. And the intention is that this is going to be kind of an interactive session. So what I hope to do is kind of start framing the conversation a little bit, share a few examples of what we're doing at Tufts University. And then if you guys are all down for it, I'd love to kind of have 3 breakout rooms and have you guys kind of like just, share what you're doing in your university, what works, what doesn't work, and then come back together for a discussion. So the well-attended session that Holly just referred to, it wasn't my talk. It was actually kind of mostly because I had amazing panelists, and this was the first day of GCEC Calgary, and we had a discussion about how AI has made our respective universities teach students the things they need to learn and then go even faster. And there were some really fascinating use cases, including a mentor bot that's on all the time at New York University, including using AI to help students network to find jobs at Case Western Reserve University. And Tulane has got a philosophy of AI throughout their educational process, which is very similar to what we're doing at Tufts University. We're also kind of taking AI and kind of making sure that we are very, thoughtfully applying like AI tools and processes into our curriculum. So I want to start with the bad news. So there's a lot, so a little bit of a background. Tufts University is in the Greater Boston area, and we are liberal arts leaning, meaning 81% of our undergraduate students are in the School of Arts and Science, and we do have a small but mighty R1 university. So there's a lot of worry on the humanities side that AI is going to replace thinking. AI is going to take out the humanity in education. So I'm a STEM kid. I was a mechanical engineer. So when I was teaching my product management course, which is 162 bringing product to market, of course I was going to put AI all through it. 13 weeks, every week we are, doing exercises with AI inside and outside the classroom because that's how product management seems to be happening right now. I had a student dislike that. The student says, well, it's not bad, but it kind of really can replace thinking and generation of new ideas and thoughts. And then I'm just checking a box, I'm getting it done quick, instead of it becoming an actively engaging process. So I think I'm going to frame this quote, like in my excitement of AI, I'm going to frame this quote to just always remind myself that we need to be very thoughtful. So we're working on being very thoughtful about, where do we use AI? And really where it comes down to is struggle. Now, AI takes away struggle, and that could be good, that could be bad, right? So if you take away too much struggle, a lot of learning actually happens in good struggle. So our philosophy at Tufts is we want to look at the places where the struggle is actually a waste of time. We're lecturing things that they could read and do independent research on. Well, that's bad struggle, and then instead they could self-teach. We have students not knowing how to do secondary research, and therefore they have some, they're not very fast at validating their assumptions. Sometimes they pick something that's too niche, and they don't know how to kind of like get better faster on secondary research. Well, AI can really help there. Data synthesis takes forever. Like if you're really doing customer discovery, there's a lot of verbatims, a lot of like transcripts that you have to go through. There is value in looking at the raw data, but coming up with the themes, it takes experience and it takes time to get to that level. How can we use AI to kind of have them get there faster so that they can have the intuition of an experienced primary researcher? When they interview 30 people, they can go through it and get a little bit of help in looking for themes in, the primordial soup of the transcripts. A lot of students struggle to explain what is the product, and a lot of it is like the clarity of the explanation ties in with the clarity of thought. But then if you have a way for them to really have to show in a prototype how it works, that could potentially kind of improve their clarity of thought. And then the conflict resolution is a whole other problem. Students are oftentimes not practiced in having difficult conversations, and it's really hard for us to go and get them to do it when they have team conflict. How can we use AI to help? So I'm going to share 5 quick examples of what we have done in our entrepreneurship program, which is an undergraduate academic program that reaches about 12% of the undergraduate student body at Tufts. And then as setup, I would like to have you guys then go into breakout and then just kind of share with each other what you all are doing. So the first one, actually, this is so we have 82% of the students in our courses experience AI in some way, shape, or form inside of the course. Either the instructors are telling them, doing a show and tell, here's how you prompt, and now you go and do secondary research to justify whatever it is that you're trying to do or to do some fact checks and stuff. So we're pretty pro AI in our program. And the whole thesis is that if we infuse our entire program with AI instead of teaching them a point tool. And that's really important because, again, we have a very diverse liberal arts leaning population. So any one tool doesn't really serve all of them. Also, most of them are actually not going to go on to start a startup when they graduate. Most of them will get a job. And if they're going to get a job, what they need is to be able to use AI and to teach themselves new AI tools that they will encounter in the job that they're going to get. And this is not controversial at all. Like even, again, in my product management course, everybody's using AI in the field. There's no product manager that doesn't use AI, and then they're using platforms that are not bespoke for entrepreneurship or bespoke for any one particular purpose for marketing or whatever. So we don't want to push them to learn how to use Breeze inside HubSpot, for example. We want them to learn how to learn and also have enough of a portfolio of skill sets on different platforms that they can then go and be successful. So 5 examples. Example number one is teaching them to self-teach. And this is not a new concept. This really comes from the inverted classroom philosophy of teaching, where the students prepare themselves by reading something or looking at video ahead of time and then going into the classroom. And then we can then cover the same topic again with them to reinforce the concepts. Well, the reading ahead doesn't always happen because it's homework and they sometimes come in not prepared. And then now we're in the classroom explaining to a mixed classroom design thinking. It really isn't a very complicated concept. They have to know it. And half the class has read the reading. The other class did not read the reading. So you sort of have to kind of shoot for the middle and explain it in some way that's accessible to everyone. So the people who did the work, the best students, they actually disengage because they already read all of it and we're talking about that topic at a very shallow level. So this past semester, I taught Entrepreneurship 101 and also product management. And in both cases, I experimented with still giving the pre-read and the videos. And then I say to them, all right, now you're going to divide into small four groups in the class. And here are the four concepts. And you each take one, spend this much time doing research as quickly as you can on an LLM of your choice, and also Google search, which now pretty much equals Gemini search. And then come back and explain it, draw a picture on the blackboard and explain it to the class. And I think they had a lot more fun there and they retained more, especially the one that they actually did the research and they had to present because students came up to me afterwards and said, well, you really learn something when you try to explain it. Were they spot on? Not really, but it's okay, right? They would not have been spot on if I went and lectured them and they fell asleep either, right? So that's one. The next one is secondary research, and this is basically a double-edged sword, right? So on one hand, if you roll the clock back 15 years, this is a super big weak place because the students don't really know or necessarily have access to all of the portals, right? So when you do market sizing, any kind of thing like that, while they're Googling for 5 minutes and then they get a couple of isolated data points and they don't really have the judgment to know I can trust the source. I don't know if I can trust that source. And then they will get some gestalt off of whatever the Google search results are. And it's not necessarily going to give them the data to validate, okay, I'm starting something and there's something there. Or I have too little data, so I have to keep going. And we see a lot of ventures go down a very niche kind of market segment because they didn't actually have the skill set to do this well. And normally we would have insufficient time in, for example, in Entrepreneurship 101, where we have to cover everything to go and teach them the skill of secondary research. Well, now with Perplexity, it completely changes the game. Basically, this is what we do now. We show them and also save into our LLM. We save into Canvas a couple of example prompts. Here's how you go and prompt Perplexity to go kind of find a bunch of sources for you. So So we demonstrate this in coaching meetings in outside the classroom. I also do this. I screen share. I start a conversation on perplexity, and I show them how to kind of start this process of you know, inquiring the great internet. What do you know about coffee roasters and temperature sensors inside of a coffee roaster, which is not an area I had previously accumulated any data on. And 2 minutes later, we've got all this data, we have a summary. Then the next thing is I would show them how to click through and look at the sources and say, well, this is trustworthy, this is not trustworthy. So it's totally transformed almost all the classes that actually want the students to go and kind of like do some market research. It changes how we teach finance. It changes how we teach 101. It changes how we teach product management. And it's the double-edged sword is then they think they know everything and they don't want to do customer research. And our answer there is we say, well, you're not going to get a grade at all and pass if you don't have at least 40 interviews. So that's the baseline. Like if the sophomores taking the 101 don't get 40 plus interviews per team, they will not get graded at all. So we just make sure that we bundle in the expectation that I saved you all this time. I expect you to spend it talking to humans. So another thing that is not only a time saver, but really teaching them a new skill that is hard to get to without elapsed time is synthesizing unstructured data from interviews. So in the olden days, we would just do interviews. We would stop every 5 interviews, sit down, talk about what does that mean, and then every five, at least that's my process when I was in a product design consulting firm doing this for pay, right? So we would sit there and we would discuss, we would sit there, we would discuss. It's very generative. In the course of a semester, for an entrepreneur, it is too slow. It's too slow, and then we need the build, measure, learn cycle to go faster than that. So now we say, well, read all of the verbatims, and you're going to have some thought bubbles of like where the themes come together, but then put all the verbatims, strip all the personal data, out of the text, put it into some platform, and then ask it for themes, ask it for insights, ask for outlier opinions, right? So then that actually teaches them what to look for the next time they do another round of interviews. So it speeds stuff up and it teaches a new skill. I don't think we need to oversell this one. I think most of us now have so many students just doing, a working prototype now with the no-code tools, Lovable, Vercel, and then the little bit, and Claude Code for a little bit more technically inclined students. In our ecosystem, we're seeing more Lovable, some Vercel, and less Claude Code, mostly in the engineering side, because we have students coming in not necessarily feeling like they are technical enough to do a product. Now, you don't need to be, you don't need to have a self-image being a technical person. You can just do product, at this level so that you can get into the field and test with people. This is before and after the same class, couple few years apart. On the left-hand side, we have wireframes, and I think that this team did pretty good with the training that they had. They mocked it up in Canva. It's good, but then it's great if you can actually make it work. So on the right-hand side, this is a marketplace for local independent boutiques, and they have the whole website, and they were able to take that and then walk down one of our streets, Newbury Street in Boston, where there are a lot of boutiques, and then they were able to have a much different level of discovery research when they got to the solution research part of the process. So truly a game changer. I think that we probably have more than half of our courses incorporate some level of working prototype, and it's literally a 30-minute, 45-minute exercise in one class, get them going, and then some of them can kind of keep on going on their own. The last one, this is an interesting one. So, teams so important, team process is important, how you lead a team so very important. It's been very, very difficult for us to go and get the students to learn the language of conflict. And it's hard when you're teaching executive MBAs. It's a little bit harder when you're teaching normal MBAs, which was where I was at MIT, and we were mostly in the MBA, mid-career MBA and executive MBA. When you take a sophomore where they really haven't seen professional conflict in the workplace, it's really, really difficult. They don't have the language, they don't have the words, and then we can go and lecture. You need to embrace conflict. You need to get work past conflict. It's difficult, and we're giving them all the words, and it doesn't make any sense. This semester, I made them a persona named Alex. Alex is kind of a top shelf student athlete, just generally amazing, and he's really good at a lot of things. And then he had a family situation that made him not work at all. Like he stopped showing up, didn't go to class, didn't do homework, got surly. So I gave him the whole backstory and had students go and practice. But, okay, so the setting is like next week we have to present. What are we doing, right? And it was really interesting. It was about 15 minutes in class, and I had each of them have an individual conversation with AI Alex. And the outcome ranged from direct escalation. So some students were able to poke his buttons enough that it just blew up and became this big argument on chat. And then on the other side, we had other students that actually asked supportive questions and got him past the surliness, and then actually got out the root cause of his behavior, which was his grandmother was going to die. So it was really interesting that, making an AI persona makes it safe for this generation student to go practice these conflict resolution skills and, having this conversation. I have no evidence it actually translates into anything, but I didn't have any team conflict issue to deal with that cohort. So the result is indeterminate. It might be that they just didn't have conflict, or it might be that they learned the language of conflict. Either way, I think the practice is actually really helpful in the role play. And I've personally used AI personas in many other role play scenarios since then. So I think that the before and after is the same class, Entrepreneurship 101, before and after AI. And what are we seeing? Qualitatively, this is not quantitative. So week 7, we usually stop and have them go and present. And in spring 2023, the problem oftentimes does not lead to the solution. It makes no sense. And then I think that we had a lot better outcome this past spring where, okay, maybe the whole premise doesn't make sense, but at least logically the problem led to the solution. That made sense. The go-to-market used to be, oh, we're going to use social media. And we're like, really? You need to give us a little bit more. Now they are able to use AI for comparables, again, using secondary research skills, and they're able to say for our venture, we're going to do these things with this segment of influencers on, Instagram and TikTok in this way, right? So it's much more focused and much more actionable, which is what we want them to do. Like, what are you doing tomorrow? Is always our call to action. And then financial literacy. So the interesting thing is, before it was hard to kind of get the concepts, and now they can go and check their homework on, all kinds of things. And it's got much, much better, even in a class where they've taken no finance. So not everything can be accelerated. So here's a team that's doing a medical device. So all the AI work that we can provide to them is really secondary research and back office automation. The product itself is not automatable with AI because it's a gynecological medical device. But if you're a non-technical student, it is completely game-changing. So this is another course we have, Introduction to Making, where the best project several years ago was, this little heart that lights up in LEDs when you talk to it, right? That was the final project. And then this past spring, the same profile students with no programming went through, a process where they learned how to use Claude to do system integration, and they made an interactive chess game. So really, our call to action is how do we use AI in a way that pushes the students to learn critical thinking skills, find authoritative sources, and just don't trust it, always verify and be able to kind of become superhuman in what they can do with AI as a tool. So I'm a little behind, but I would love to see if you guys are all down for kind of getting into breakout rooms and then discuss this a little bit. So let me just frame this quickly. So we've created a deck, empty deck here, where I have room one, room two, room three, and I would love for you guys to get into the room, spend maybe 10 minutes, and just with the examples that's given, just think about what else is like that, and then share with each other what AI tools and practices are you seeing, and how are they actually accelerating success or not? What are the pitfalls? And then come back together and we'll do a 1 minute share and then open discussion. Okay. I think I think that we're gonna open the rooms and we'll come back together at 10:40. Hello. So remember, we're gonna ask each room to summarize and kind of share with us what you guys discussed. All right, let's see. Are we all back? I think we're all back. Oh wait, is everybody all back? No, we have one more room. Hmm, I think we're all back.
Yes, I think they are. Yeah.
Awesome. Would
Okay.
love to so we were all like the three of us were lurking. Do we want to okay. So we would love to hear what the conversation was about in each of the rooms. And maybe we can start with room one. And this is these are notes from room one. Room two has less notes, but who would like to share from room one? 1 minute share.
I'm happy to go. So we just kind of spitballed a little bit what we're seeing and what the trends are, what we're using, et cetera, in our centers. And so I'll just kind of run through these. So peer to peer, like what we find at Harvard is since we're outside of the classroom, it's a lot of peers teaching each other how to use it. We almost can't keep up with the speed at which they're using AI to both develop the ventures, but also do things like customer discovery, et cetera, and more traditional functional things like HR and finance and legal activities. We had someone talk about how there were centers, lots of centers, centers popping up around AI. We have the same thing. At some point, I'm hoping that will be consolidated. So we're not, we have so many centers focused on AI. There's no consistency, like just people are using a million different tools across lots of different activities, like full on use of AI across everything. Like there's almost there are no boundaries. Uh, there, so some of the one of the centers was had participants that were not just university participants, but beyond that, and they decide what they want to use. So everything from tools to build the company itself to how to use AI in your business, building the product. The center offers lots of guidance, but in the end, it's really a student led decision or participant led decision. They're not all students. Um, Lots of using AI to just do stuff. So almost the example of like having a team member to do stuff day-to-day activities, to provide kind of leverage for the actual humans on the team to do higher level activities. We at Harvard do a lot of work on ideation, and so we use AI a lot with ideation, which is really interesting and fun. Um, and then every presentation is being developed with AI. They all look the same. You can tell immediately. What did I miss? Group one.
Good summary, Jill. Thank
Anything?
you.
Yeah, great summary.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jill. Room two. There's relatively fewer words, but I'm sure it was a really rich discussion.
I'll go ahead and jump in. We had a relatively shy group, so we were a little slower to get started, spent a little more time on introductions and on the topic at hand. We also had a technical difficulty, so the slide didn't pop up quick enough for us to kind of get our feet underneath us to add more commentary to it. So just a heads up on that. For the group as a whole, it felt like, and team jump in anytime if I'm misspeaking, we're very early in our building frameworks or intentional use around AI. It felt like it was being used more in an audit capacity or to help ideation, side of things. Certainly, ideation expands to how you present, so creating some of the marketing materials. The bullet point that's on the slide is a course that I'm teaching. It's called AI versus Humans, Who Builds a Better Business. So we're going to explore building a business exclusively using AI tools and then talk about putting a human in the center, and how AI is hopefully, knock on wood, if it works the way I think it's going to, the net outcome will be AI is a better partner and collaborator than it is leader in building out these businesses, because our students are nerdy and they gravitate to AI, building all sorts of wonderful software and prototypes and development tools, and they tend to shy away from sort of the customer problem discovery side of things. So my hope is that that's part of what comes out of there. The only other thing that I did mention is for our AI use on campus, and I do applaud this, we've sort of firewalled the AI tools that we're using. Being an R1 research university, a lot of our students are collaborating around spin-out technologies, and protecting IP is a priority. So the open use for founders of free and readily available AI tools may at some point put their IP at risk, if it's not protected, because they're sharing ideas that other learning models have access to, and it's not clear from a legal standpoint who owns these AI generated thoughts and ideas, right? So if you want to protect your IP, we can scrape from the broader world, but we're keeping our IP firewalled. So
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think that it was, I wish I could have listened to room one and two as well. Sounds like a great conversation. Room three?
Hi there. Um, we didn't follow instructions like true entrepreneurs, but we had a diverse group with some great conversations. Laurel from Michigan State talked about how employers don't want just students to have used AI, but they want them to have built something, and lots of reinforcement on that idea. We talked with Catherine, who oversees the Rice Business Plan competition, about similarly the use of AI in all the presentations, but the difference there is having panels or judges who push harder to get to the why or how you built whatever is in your presentation. We had an entrepreneur in the room, Maddie from Founders First, who talked about how AI tools can help your students get access to quote unquote the right people, which could be everything from customers to professional service providers and other resources. We're also seeing some of these groups get inundated with requests because it's easier to do so. We had a high school instructor, Adam, who's seeing how students who learn differently are using AI to help them find success, and that's been really powerful for him to see. And then I spoke a little bit how at UCLA, we had to encourage the rest of the campus to make tools available to the students, but where we're really lagging is access to better tools for staff. And that actually has some budget implications and will for a long time to come.
Awesome. So, well, we can't not do some live AI, this being the topic of, so I took all of the notes and also for room chat, I just kind of was typing live. This is what Perplexity, like actually, this is what Claude Sonnet's like 4.6 inside of Perplexity things are the themes. So I'm gonna just kind of pause here and then ask you guys what does it all mean, right? So we have all kind of shared a little bit, and I wish there's like a lot more time, and hopefully we'll see each other again in Tallahassee, and we can keep talking about this. Um, well, there are some themes that come up. Without a doubt, everybody is kind of at warp speed, right? So they're going faster, and in good ways. There are some places where it's making things a little bit too easy, but mostly we're seeing gains. Um, Everybody agrees you still have to have the human being in charge. And no one's giving us a playbook, right? There's no playbook, and we're all making our own way forward. And I think that, Mindy, I think that, it's really interesting how like a more tech forward cohort has to think about fundamentally different problems that a more liberal arts forward cohort, well, we have a little extra time to worry about IP because that's kind of not really front and center as much because we get a lot more small business. Um, it gets formulaic, right? So this talk, I actually had a deep collaboration with Perplexity. And then there was a variant of this talk where I said to Perplexity, this is so generic. There's no originality. What's going on? And they're like, oh, you're right. This just follows the arc of all talks. It's not helpful if you give me a framework for all talks. And yeah, I think that, in storytelling for a venture pitch, we do risk being formulaic because there is an order to the madness. You have to hook. You have to tell the story of the person having the problem. So there's this, like AI could end up kind of making everything very mid. And then we've got legal friction. I'm going to stop share now and see, like what do you all think it means as educators? What are we called to do, right? So there's frameworking, there's firewalling IP. Like, what does it all mean, and where should we go from here? Uh, Jad?
Yeah. So most of what we've discussed so far has been in the initial stages, but the bits and pieces and again, we're a little different that we work with founders that might be a little further along and not necessarily students, but the bits and pieces of building the business that are completely human-centered. Sales is one of them. So how do you use AI or not, or how do you create skills for students in this case, for the most part, but in general because we do sessions on business development, sales, and processes, but how you take AI or the fact that maybe AI is not the right solution for things that are still very human-centered.
Right.
And I think that's so you can do a lot of stuff through AI and get bits and pieces, but there's still things like presenting, like you just mentioned, the storytelling, sales, leading a team, etc., that cannot be replaced by AI. If it is, then we're all done.
Does anybody have follow-on thoughts or responses or something that you're doing that addresses how do we still teach the skills, right? So the good struggle, sales being one of them, you're not going to AI your biz dev. That doesn't work. Okay, you can agent, like put an agent in place, but you're in mega B2B. I was in industrial automation. You do not sell using an AI agent into like a factory. That's just a not thing. So what are you all doing about that? No one has.
I,
Mindy,
I'm
Mindy.
not doing anything yet about it, but I think for our team, there's just increasing clarity that AI needs to be positioned as a tool, that there's danger in positioning it as an equal, right? AI sounds human. It is not human. It is a master at mapping patterns. That's it. Glorified pattern mapping. whether it's language, whether it's technology, right? Um, so again, I go back to the idea that our students in particular, including our graduate students, given their limited lived experience, and I'm not suggesting quality, I'm literally saying age and years, so what they've had a chance to be exposed to, is one of the constraints in helping them excel as an entrepreneur. And that's where lived experience gives you better dot connections. And that's been proven, by the way, in the way our brain operates with neuroscience and how we store data differently as we age. So if AI can give them that context, they can run faster, better, higher, stronger. It's amazing. So for me, the big takeaway and what I've been chipping away at in my thought process is how do we make sure we position it as a tool, like a superpower they can leverage if it's done well, versus thinking of it as a person that they may be delegating things to. Because you stay in control in the middle of a tool, using a tool. You don't when you delegate. When you delegate, you're kind of going hands off.
Yeah, I think that, yes, absolutely agree. Laura.
Well, I wanted to build off that because I've been trying to think about different ways to discuss this with students to help them understand how they can leverage AI, what its limitations are, where it can help them. And I'm trying to think of kind of pithy ways to describe this. And so one of the things I'm testing out is basically you have to be a little bit Tony Stark before you can have a Jarvis. Like just having Jarvis is not going to make you Tony Stark. You will not be Iron Man because you just open a chatbot window and start typing in things. So it's not meant to discourage them that they have to be like a next level genius, but you do have to have some knowledge in a partnership with a tool like that. So the superpower point that you were making, Mindy, kind of made me think about that.
Yeah, what a great analogy. So we have time for one more comment from Joe, and then handing it back to Holly to do a call to action to continue the conversation on Slack in this channel. I just put it in the chat. Jill.
Yeah, so I actually love that analogy. And I think that building on that, it's also helping students figure out, and this has been reflected in the discussion today, like where to use the superpower and where to not use the super, because it can become a kryptonite, right? I think. And when I think about certain types of businesses, I started a bricks and mortar business back in the day. And we have so many things that drive people to sit behind a computer screen. And there's nothing that replaces like traffic counts, right? Like there's nothing that replaces actually going out and doing the work physically to understand your market or to build your product. I think there are lots of businesses where AI is actually not that helpful. And there are lots of businesses where it is helpful. And there are lots of functions where it is and isn't helpful. So I think it's just helping students to really understand, are you just like playing around for fun with a tool and it's just like fun? Do that on your personal time, on your own time, or is it actually advancing your venture and answering a question you have about it or solving a problem you have about it?
Oh, yeah. So that's a great comment to end this discussion on. And we have a matcha cafe in our summer accelerator. So they are using AI in the back, but the product doesn't have AI. Anyway, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Holly. And thank you so much for the active discussion. This is amazing.
Yes, thank you, Elaine, and thank you for leading the active discussion. When I reached out to Elaine about redoing her session from the fall, she said, "I want to do something interactive," and I said, "Well, we haven't had an interactive virtual connection in a while, so this is great, Elaine." But yes, a plug for our GCEC Slack. So leading up to this session, we did create a channel in the Slack for teaching in AI, or also just, I know a lot of you aren't teaching, but you're doing programming, and it would be relevant there. Because we do at the GCC get a lot of questions, a lot of requests. So we are trying to build up the activity on that AI channel. But also just reach out to me. Most of you have my email. If you've got other areas we haven't covered yet in AI, we're obviously going to continue to cover AI, but we have done a lot of different topics. So if there's something that's bubbling up that we can put together, we're happy to do that. So we're going to wrap today's session. Thank you for joining us on a Friday morning. We normally have our virtual connections at 1 p.m. Eastern, but we get a lot of feedback from our members across the pond and in other places that 6 o'clock virtual connection on a Friday is not so fun for them. So we tried this one earlier in the morning, and we did have some more international folks register and log on. So, but we're not doing a virtual connection in July because we'll be at our GCEC Global Summit in Brazil. But we are returning in August with 2 virtual connections. One is a special edition for Airtable. I was getting inundated with requests for Airtable, so we've just put a special session. It's not on the final Friday of the month. You're going to get an email about it. All it will be about is down and dirty how people are using Airtable. Be very specific to that. And then we'll have our general session at the end of the month in August. So everyone have a wonderful rest of June and early July. And I hope you're doing something fun on this summer Friday. And thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
everyone.
for coming.